Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message it comes from a translation of a message that I received. The message reads like this: Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my story as anonymous? I am a 25-year-old man and I currently have two kids and I am working here in South Africa at a certain farm, and my country of origin, I come from Zim. I have so many problems that I am facing in my life, and I don't know if I will be able to conquer all of those challenges that I am facing. What happened in my life is that when I was out of school after I had dropped out, because I then went and I started digging up for gold, just like everyone was doing in our village. From the area where we come from, there is a lot of gold. So usually a lot of kids they drop out of school. Whilst I was working at the gold mines, that was when I took one girl who was my girlfriend from high school. Then she became my wife, even though her parents didn't like me. But anyway, we fell in love, and she then gave two kids. And after that, because of the pressures, I didn't have any choice at all but to go to the gold mine. So I had to drop out of school. Whilst I was there, my brother, then there was one friend of mine. He was a little bit older than I was. At that time, he was 32 years old. He said that he really wanted to become a driver, but he didn't have any money at all. He then went to this other driving school. When he went to that driving school and he told them that he wanted a driver's license, but he had never driven a car before, they told him the amount of money that was needed for all the lessons so that he could be able to drive a truck. He said that he didn't know how he was going to manage to pay all of the money that was needed for the lessons that were needed before he could go for the testing. So then one of the guy, after he had gone out of the driving school, we had been listening to the conversation. That man then spoke with my friend and he said that he knew some other people who were there in Harare who could quickly help him, and there was no need for him to go even to write the learner's test. All that was needed was his photo, and all that was needed was just a little bit of his fingerprints. And he said, so what are we going to do for the fingerprints? Are we supposed to go there to Harare? And then he said that no, you can get your fingerprints after you would have gotten your license, because already your face will be in the system. He was then told that the amount of money that was needed, it was 600 US dollars, but this 600 US dollars you could actually pay it in installments. So this was like a good idea to him. The first thing that they did is that they took him to Gweru, and after they had taken him to Gweru, that is when he came back with his provisional learner's test, and he then started learning how to drive. And after that, when he had raised up a little bit of the money that was needed for the installments that they had agreed upon, he then returned back to Gweru. And when he returned back to Gweru, initially he was told that he was supposed to go to collect his license there in Harare, but then things changed. When he arrived in Gweru, he already saw that the man had his license, but the paper one, it was not yet the gold plated license. So he was then told that he needed to return, but in the meantime, he could use that blue copy. He then came back and he started looking for work, and he was now working as a taxi driver. What he didn't know is that this thing, it was just a fake thing. It was not an original thing. After a little while, when he had finished off paying the installment, he was told that 4 more hundred US dollars was needed. He said, why do I need to pay so much? Then that man said that since we did a backdoor deal for you to go on your own so that you can go and collect your license, it is going to be very difficult. So we need to do another back deal so that someone else from the inside can collect this license for you. I then said, where am I going to get these 400 US dollars? Then that man said that if you do not collect that disc in time, then they are going to destroy it, because the supervisors will ask as to why this disc is not being collected, so you need to give me the money so that we can collect your license. My friend then returned back home and he spoke with his poor mom. And after he had spoken with his poor mom, then the mom agreed to sell one of their cattle. After the mom had sold the cow, that was when they got the money, and he then traveled again to Gweru. And after he had traveled to Gweru, he was told that the license will be on its way. He said that my friend had to wait for him in Gweru. There was no need for him to return to Mberengwa because all that was needed was for him to travel to Harare, just collect that license disc, but it was going to be done through the back door deal. So my friend then waited for that man in Gweru at his uncle's house. So he never went for that driver's test or anything. It just came whilst he was at home, and he had so much confidence, and he was saying that he even wanted to drive a truck, but he didn't know that he was using a fake driver's license. After he had gotten his driver's license, he started going around applying at different companies until finally there was this other man who hired him. This man that hired him was working for Zesa. So usually my friend, he would go there to the offices of Zesa. Whilst he was there one day, that was when he had a minor accident with one of the managers there at Zesa. And then this had to be made a report because that manager, he was driving a company car. So when my friend's license was searched in the database, it was never found. And from there on, my friend then started running away. He was now living sort of like a fugitive. So he was always there at the gold mines. Then he said that for him to succeed in life, at least he needed to become a prophet because after he had started working as a driver on my own, I had been going to the White Garment Church and I had been interested with this thing of me becoming a prophet because I used to have different dreams, and in my dreams, usually I'll be singing in church and giving people prophecies. And there was a woman who had said that she had seen that in me there was a spirit of prophecy. So when my friend came back to our village as a fugitive, he then started praying and he said that he also wanted to become a prophet. So usually, as we will be going around giving people prophecies, my friend, he was the one whom I made to hold the cross. And as for me, I was the one who would be holding that clay plate that will be filled with holy water as I'll be praying for people. And as we started praying, in my mind, I never had that dream of making people to pay for my services. And since my friend, he was the first one, each and everything that we would do, my friend would always go behind my back, and my friend will tell those people that I would have assisted. And then my friend will start to tell those people that I am facing financial problems. So mostly people in the village, they didn't have like hard cash. Usually they would give us chickens or goats, then we would bring them back into our village and we would resell them. So when I found out that my friend, this is what he was doing, I tried to confront him because that other prophetess had told me that since this gift had been given to me by God for free, I needed to pray for people for free without making them to pay. So I didn't like it. But my friend then said that, look at yourself. Look how thin you have grown because of lack of food. Why don't you just make these people that you are assisting pay you because they want to pay you, but sometimes you refuse? That is how we got into this game whereby if you assist someone, then you make that person to pay. Sometimes when we would get a very rich customer, then he would say, let us perform some prayers so that this person, even after you have cured them from their problem that they are facing, they will keep on facing other problems and they will keep on coming back to you. And right now, at our village in my home state, my brother, I have 5 cattle that were handed to me by some people that I did prayers against them so that they can give me their cattle. What I will do is that my friend, under his guidance, even though I knew some of these prayers, we would go to the grave, and after we had gone to the grave, I'll just collect the soil from the grave, then I'll just say a prayer inviting the spirits to follow the soil that I would have collected collected from the grave. So usually the soil that is collected from the grave, if it is spread around someone's house, then that family will start to quarrel even over small issues. That family will always be quarreling because you would have invited the spirit of the dead into their homestead. So when we would get into a new village, usually we would collect the soil from a grave, then we would go around looking for a house that is kind of like rich. You can just see by the way that it will be built, and you'll see that in this village these people, they look like they are the wealthiest. Then we will just spread that soil that we would have collected from the grave. Usually we used to do it at night. Then as those people would start to hear that there are some powerful prophets that are walking around the village, and then they would invite us into their home. And since I was the one who would have done those prayers, all that I had to do was to chase away the spirit of the dead people that I would have invited when I would have gone to collect the soil from the grave. So all of these things, they were taught to me by my friend, even though he didn't know how to perform these prayers. But my friend, he was just that man who knew how to hustle for money. We reached all the corners, I can say, of our country, until one day me and my friend, we went to this other homestead. So at this homestead where we were invited, the children that we found there, they were saying that their father, their late father, was a traditional healer. So they didn't want to continue with his legacy of being a traditional healer. So they wanted help, like throwing away all of the goblins and the tokoloshes that had been left behind by their father. This was quite easy to me, because usually what would happen is that when I was about to pray for someone, there was something that would enter into my body. Then I would feel if I would be able to perform the prayer or not. If I could not do it, then I would look for other local prophets so that they can join me in prayer. But at that time, I then saw that I was really fit. So I started praying and praying. And finally, I managed to collect all of the tokoloshes, and I placed them inside a changani bag. We then went to the river and we threw that changani bag into that river. When we returned back to our village, my brother, I then found out that my brother's child had passed away. The way that my brother's child passed away, it was like there was someone who was beating him up with a stone. There were even people who claimed that they saw a huge rock falling from the sky and falling on top of my brother's child. And after the rock had fallen down, then he just passed away. He had blood all over his face. After he had passed away, my brother, as for my friend, he was then arrested. This was after he had gone to drink beer, and whilst he was drinking beer, he then started to fight with this other man over this other prostitute that he had found in that local beer hall. Whilst they were fighting, he then took a knife and he stabbed that other man that he was fighting with, and he then got arrested. So I was now all left alone. But whilst I was at my brother's child funeral, I then saw my brother's child, and he was saying, "Uncle, why have you done this to me? Why have you done this to me?" At that time, I was sitting with the rest of my relatives. We were just sitting by the fire as per our custom. Usually at a funeral, we just make a big fire, then all the men will be sitting outside, whilst the women, they'll be singing and dancing inside the house. I then saw my brother's child, and he was crying and he was saying, "Why have you done this to me?" I then asked him why he was crying. He then pointed at me, and I saw that I was holding a clay plate, and inside that clay plate there was blood. But this blood, it was boiling. It got so hot, my brother, that I dropped that clay plate. And after I had dropped it, that was when my other brother shook me violently. He said, what are you doing?" And when I woke up, I then saw that it had seemed as if I was in a trance because everything that was happening, my whole body was showing that there is a vision that I was seeing. I then lied to the rest of my brothers since they trusted me as a family prophet. I then told them that I had seen that my brother's child who had recently died was now in paradise, and I was the one who had went to hell and rescued him at that time when they had seen me having those violent episodes whilst I was in a vision. It was because I was fighting with the devil, and after winning that case, he then went to paradise. So everyone was happy, and everyone, when we were burying my brother's child, they thought that indeed he had gone to paradise, but this was just a lie. And after that, my brother, I then started to act as if I was losing my mind, even though I was pretending as if I was just okay. What would happen is that usually when I was alone, I would see him. Sometimes when I would go to pray, even in the mountain, I would hear that there would be someone that would be following me. When I would look around, I would see that it was my brother's late child. I then thought of running away because these episodes were just too much. I stopped being a prophet, and I then contacted this other friend of mine who was working here in South Africa. And when I came here to South Africa, I had those white garments, the ones that I use when I am prophesying. They were inside this other bag whilst I was on the bus. But I don't know what happened because the next thing, when I woke up, I then saw that it had gone missing. Both of my bags that I had, they had gone missing. And on this bus that I was traveling on when I was coming here to South Africa, it had a few people. There was no a lot of in that bus. The bus that I was traveling on when I was coming here to South Africa, it didn't have a lot of people. So I don't know if there is someone who stole that bag that had those white garments that I use when I am prophesying. But when I asked the drivers, they searched and they searched, and there is no one who can even steal this religious stuff because it can bring you a lot of bad luck. So, my brother, I then found myself being here in South Africa, and I've never returned back home because each and every time when I think of returning back home, usually I would have a dream and I'll be traveling either in a bus or in a car. Then the car that I'll be traveling in, it would have an accident, but not with another car. What would happen is that as the bus or the car will be traveling, then in the middle of the road, usually I'll find myself on the N1. Then there will be a grave that will be in the middle of the N1 highway. Then as the car that I'll be traveling in would approach that grave that would suddenly appear in the middle of the highway, then that grave would open up. So the thing that confuses me is that yes, I can see that the car would have an accident, but it is only I who would be thrown inside that grave. Then the grave will close itself up. So I am stuck here, my brother. Even as for my wife, she thinks that I no longer love her. But my brother, this is what I am going through. I am having hell here on earth. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received. It came from our dear brother. Then we had to give you this translation. Strange things do happen in this world. Just imagine when you are busy driving your car, then in the middle of the highway, you see a grave. Then, as you are approaching that grave that you would have seen, then the grave will open up. Yo, strange things do happen in this world. Have you ever been involved in an accident whereby you didn't understand what exactly happened? If it happened to you, please come to my inbox. Then we can then you can share your story so that we can know what exactly happened. Was it a normal accident or was it a spiritual one?